The moon hangs in the void like a pale, lidless eye, watching a world that it can never touch, a silent witness to the slow rotation of a planet teeming with loud and chaotic life. When we look at that silver sphere, we see a sanctuary, a romantic light in the darkness. But the reality of the lunar surface is a haunting testament to the universal rule of silence. There is no air to carry a scream, no atmosphere to soften the harsh, unfiltered glare of distant suns. It is a world of shadows so sharp they look like obsidian blades cutting across a landscape that hasn't changed in millions of years. Every crater is a scar from a violent past, yet they sit in a stillness so absolute it feels like time itself has been frozen in a block of ice. As you drift closer to this monochromatic wasteland, you begin to feel the crushing weight of the vacuum. The moon is the doorstep to the true basement of the universe, a place where the comfort of a blue sky is replaced by a blackness so deep it seems to pull at your very soul. There are no whispers of wind here, no rustle of leaves, only the rhythmic thumping of your own heart echoing inside the confines of your suit, a reminder that you are a biological anomaly in a kingdom of dead stone. This is the second step into the great loneliness, the realization that our nearest neighbor is a hollow tomb. We once dreamed of cities in the lunar dust, of bases and outposts that would light up the dark side of the moon. But the moon remains barren for a reason. It is a sentinel, a warning that the deeper you go into the cosmos, the less hospitable it becomes. The dust underfoot is like powdered glass, the remnants of countless celestial collisions, pulverized over eons into a gray soot that clings to everything. It is a graveyard of light. When the sun sets on the lunar horizon, the temperature drops into a cold that defies human comprehension, a cold that doesn't just chill the skin, but stops the very motion of atoms. In this darkness, you are truly alone. The earth looks like a fragile marble in the distance, a glowing sapphire that seems impossibly small and dangerously thin. From the perspective of the lunar silence, the life on Earth seems like a fever dream, a temporary flicker of activity that the surrounding void is patiently waiting to extinguish. The reason the moon is so still is the same reason the rest of the universe remains silent. Existence is a burden that the vacuum eventually shakes off. The craters on the far side of the moon hide secrets that have never seen the sun, deep pockets of permanent shadow where the laws of physics seem to whisper of a time before light was born. We send our machines to probe these depths, but they return only images of gray desolation. It is as if the universe is deliberately keeping its most ancient spaces empty, guarding the void against the intrusion of curiosity. As you float above the lunar plains, the sense of being watched grows, not by eyes, but by the sheer absence of life. The vacuum is an observer in its own right, a passive force that measures the lifespan of stars and the decay of civilizations. The moon is just the first layer of the veil, a silver mask that hides the terrifying vastness of what lies beyond. Beyond the moon, the distances become incomprehensible, and the silence becomes a physical presence that fills the lungs of the mind. We're like ants crawling on a pebble in the middle of a dark, frozen ocean, unaware that the ripples we make are being watched by something that has no name and no form. The silence of the moon is a preview of the end of all things. It is a glimpse into a future where every planet is a cold, airless rock and every star is a black cinder. There is a terrifying peace in this vision, a release from the noise of ambition and the pain of survival. To be as still as the moon is to be beyond the reach of suffering. As you drift further into the lunar night, the stars above seem to sharpen, their light more piercing because there is nothing to dilute them. They are like cold diamonds set in a fabric of infinite black velvet. You realize then that the beauty of the universe is a byproduct of its hostility. The stars shine so brightly only because the darkness is so absolute. The reason for the emptiness is becoming clearer now. It is the canvas required for the light to exist at all. But the canvas is infinite while the paint is finite. Eventually, the paint will run dry and only the obsidian emptiness will remain, just as it remains on the airless plains of the moon today. You are descending now, not onto the surface, but into the idea of the void itself. The gray dust of the moon begins to blur into the black of the interstellar medium. The transition is seamless, for they are both made of the same fundamental nothingness. The moon is simply a place where the nothingness has taken a physical shape. The fear that settles in your chest is not the fear of falling, but the fear of never stopping. In the vacuum, there is no resistance, no boundary, no end. You are a ghost in a machine of stasis, a flicker of heat in a world of absolute zero. The silence is no longer outside of you. It is beginning to seep into your thoughts, slowing them down, cooling them until they are as still as the lunar craters. The reason the universe is empty is because it is the most efficient way to exist. Life requires energy, movement, and heat, all things that are temporary and fragile. The void requires nothing. It is self-sustaining, eternal, and perfectly calm. To enter the void is to enter the ultimate state of rest, a sleep so deep that even the memory of a sun cannot wake you. The stars are receding now, becoming dim ghosts as you move deeper into the shadow of the lunar disk. The earth has vanished behind the horizon of stone, and you are left with nothing but the stars and the silence. This is the moment where the terror turns into a strange, cold comfort. If the universe is empty, then there is no one to judge, no one to demand, and no one to fear. But the fear remains, because the human mind cannot handle the scale of such a perfect vacuum. We are built for noise, for touch, for the presence of others. To be in the lunar silence is to be stripped of your humanity, to become mere objects in a sea of objects. The reason we are alone is because the universe is a machine for creating distance. It pushes us apart, isolates hides us on our tiny islands of light and surrounds us by a sea of darkness that we can never truly cross. The silver dust of the moon is the sand in the hourglass of the cosmos, and it is running out, grain by grain, into the infinite dark. Moving further into the darkness, we leave the rocky sentinels of the inner system behind and drift toward the realm of the giants, where the scale of the universe begins to defy the limits of human imagination. Jupiter and Saturn loom in the distance, not as solid ground where one might land, but as colossal spheres of swirling gas and ancient storms, trapped in a perpetual dance around a sun that is now nothing more than a bright, cold star. Here, the vacuum is filled with the hum of intense radiation and the crushing weight of gravity so powerful it can warp the very fabric of time. As you approach Jupiter, the king of planets, the silence changes its texture. It is no longer the empty silence of the moon, but a roaring, invisible pressure. The great red spot, a storm larger than our entire world, has been churning for centuries, a silent hurricane in a sea of ammonia and hydrogen. There is something terrifying about a storm that never ends, a chaos that is so massive it appears stationary from a distance. It is a reminder that in the depths of the cosmos, order and destruction are the same thing, and the universe does not need life to create complexity. The clouds of Jupiter are a kaleidoscope of ochre, gold, and blood red, moving in counter-rotating bands like the gears of a god-sized machine that has forgotten its purpose. To fall into the atmosphere of a gas giant is to experience the ultimate form of isolation. There is no surface to hit, no bottom to reach, only an ever-increasing density that eventually turns the very air into a liquid metal, crushing anything that dares to enter its domain. The reason these giants exist is to act as the vacuum cleaners of the solar system, their gravity catching the debris of the void and pulling it into their depths. They are the guardians of the inner worlds, yet they are utterly indifferent to the life they protect. The moons of Jupiter, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, drift in the shadow of their master like ghosts in a haunted mansion. Europa, covered with a crust of ice, hides a dark subsurface ocean that has never seen the light of a star. We wonder if something swims in those lightless depths, but perhaps the silence there is even more absolute than the void of space. If life exists in such places, it is a life that knows nothing of the sun, nothing of the sky, and nothing of us. It is a life that evolved in a tomb, perfectly content with its own darkness. The emptiness of the outer solar system is a barrier that shields us from the true scale of the galaxy, a vast moat of cold and radiation that keeps the secrets of the giants hidden from our prying eyes. Further out, the rings of Saturn shimmer like a halo made of frozen tears. Billions of particles of ice and rock, ranging from the size of a grain of sand to the size of a mountain, orbit the planet in a perfect flat disk. It is a masterpiece of celestial geometry, but it is also a graveyard of shattered moons. The silence here is crystalline and fragile. If you were to stand among the rings, you would see a horizon of white diamonds, all drifting in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. But beneath the beauty lies a terrifying reality. Saturn is a planet of ghosts. Its winds howl at speeds that would tear a mountain apart, yet from the outside it looks as peaceful as a sleeping child. This is the deception of the cosmos. It presents a face of serene beauty to mask a core of violent, unthinking power. The reason for the vast spaces between these giants is to ensure that their gravity does not tear the solar system apart. The universe demands distance to maintain its balance, and we are caught in the gaps, tiny spectators in a theater of monsters. The rings are a reminder that everything in the universe is eventually broken down into dust, and that even the grandest structures are subject to the slow, grinding erosion of time. The deeper we go into the territories of the gas giants, the more we realize that our definitions of home and safety are local illusions. Out here, the sun is a distant memory, and the shadows are long and cold. The magnetic fields of these planets are so immense they create lethal environments for millions of miles around them, invisible traps that can fry the electronics of a probe or the nervous system of a traveler in an instant. The universe is empty because it is filled with these invisible walls of energy and gravity that make travel nearly impossible. We are confined to our small pocket of warmth because the rest of the neighborhood is a lethal wasteland of radiation and ice. The silence of Saturn's moons, like Titan with its lakes of liquid methane and its orange haze, is a heavy, suffocating silence. Titan is a world that looks like a prehistoric Earth frozen in time, waiting for a spark that will never come. It is a failed experiment in life, a place where the ingredients were present, but the spirit was absent. The emptiness of the outer solar system is a horror of the empty universe. It is a laboratory filled with half-finished creations and abandoned projects. As you drift away from Saturn, heading toward the even colder reaches of Uranus and Neptune, the light of the sun becomes so dim that you can no longer tell day from night. You are entering the true darkness, the frontier where the solar system begins to dissolve into the interstellar void. The gas giants are the last outposts of matter before the long, lonely stretch to the next star. They stand as monuments to the scale of the emptiness, their massive bulks barely a speck against the backdrop of the infinite. The reason they are so far apart is the same reason the stars are so far apart. The universe is expanding, stretching the distance between all things, until eventually every object will be entirely alone in its own observable horizon. We are living in a brief moment of cosmic history when we can still see our neighbors, but the void is growing and the silence is deepening.
presence of these giants is a recognition of your own insignificance. You are a creature of heat and light in a realm of ice and shadow. The storms of the outer planets are the breathing of the cosmos, a slow, deep inhalation and exhalation that takes centuries to complete. They do not care for the passing of human generations or the rise and fall of civilizations. They are eternal, or at least they seem so to us. The reason the universe is empty of life like ours is that the conditions for our existence are a razor-thin margin in a sea of extremes. To the gas giants, we are nothing more than a temporary fluctuation in the chemical composition of a nearby rock. The silence they project is the silence of the absolute. It is the sound of a world that has no need for ears to hear it. As you settle into the rhythm of the cosmic tides, the presence of the giants begins to feel like a heavy weight on your chest, a reminder that the universe is made of things.
Leaving the giants behind, we drift into the vast, glowing nurseries of the cosmos, the nebulae. These are the star-forming regions, clouds of gas and dust spanning hundreds of light years, where the elements of life are forged in the heart of chaos. To the distant eye, they are masterpieces of color, ethereal veils of violet, rose, and emerald. But as you move within them, the beauty reveals a more sinister nature. A nebula is not a cloud you can touch. It is a ghost, a hauntingly thin veil of matter that is more vacuum than substance. To be inside one is to be lost in a fog of cosmic proportions, where the light of newborn stars is strangled by the very dust that created them. These are the pillars of creation, yet they are also the pillars of destruction. The radiation from infant suns carves great hollows into the gas, pushing back the darkness with a violent ultraviolet wind. This is where the universe is at its most creative, and yet the silence here is different. It is the silence of a laboratory after the scientists have fled, a place of immense potential and terrifying cold. The reason these clouds are so vast and so empty of anything but the raw materials of existence is a cosmic strategy of isolation. Every nebula is a fortress of shadow. Inside their dense cores, gravity is slowly, patiently pulling atoms together, whispering to the hydrogen and helium to collapse into a point of infinite pressure. It takes millions of years for a single star to ignite, a process so slow that to a human observer it looks like a photograph of a scream frozen in time. The reason the universe feels so empty is the sheer scale of the time required for anything to happen. We are creatures of seconds and minutes, living in a reality that operates on the scale of eons. In a nebula, you are a witness to a birth that you will never see finish. The infant stars, or protostars, are shrouded in cocoons of dust, hiding their first cries of light from the rest of the galaxy. It is as if the universe wants to keep its children hidden until they are strong enough to face the void. But many of these stars will never be born. The gas will disperse, the gravity will fail, and the potential for life will simply evaporate into the black. This is the horror of the nursery. For every star that shines, 1,000 more
are smothered in the cradle of the dark. As you float through the Orion Nebula or the Carina, the scale of the dust clouds makes you realize that the solid ground we stand on is a rare and lucky accident. Most of the universe is just this, drifting soot and cold gas, waiting for a spark that may never come. The reason for the emptiness is that the universe is a wasteful architect. It creates vast cathedrals of color only to let them dissolve back into the nothingness. There is no plan here, no guiding hand ensuring that every nebula produces a solar system like ours. It is a chaotic, blind process of trial and error, occurring across distances that no mind can truly grasp. The silence of the nebula is thick with the ghosts of failed worlds. You can almost feel the weight of the planets that were never formed, the civilizations that never had a chance to breathe because their parent star was snuffed out before it could even begin to glow. The emptiness is not just a lack of matter, it is a graveyard of possibilities, a place where the future is constantly being traded for the silence of the past. The light that does manage to escape these clouds is ancient by the time it reaches your eyes. It has traveled through the cold, lonely stretches of the interstellar medium, losing its energy and its warmth. By the time we see the birth of a star in a nebula, that star may already be dying, or the cloud itself may have been blown away by the winds of a supernova. We are looking at a gallery of ghosts. The reason the universe is so frighteningly empty is that light itself is a liar. It shows us a vibrant, crowded sky that has long since changed. The stars we use to navigate the night may no longer exist, and the nebulae we admire may have become nothing but scattered dust. We are living in a delay, a lag in the cosmic broadcast, hearing the echoes of a party that ended billions of years ago. The silence we hear now is the true state of the universe, while the light we see is merely the memory of a noise that has passed. Inside the dark tendrils of the Horsehead Nebula, or the deep rifts of the Milky Way, there are regions called Bach globules, dense, cold knots of gas that are the coldest places in the known universe. Here, the temperature is only a few degrees above absolute zero. In these pockets, movement almost stops. The silence is so heavy it feels like a physical substance, a dark water that fills your ears and slows your heart. The reason these cold spots exist is to serve as the ultimate reset button. When the universe becomes too loud, too hot, or too crowded, it retreats into these knots of darkness to start again. But the gaps between these nurseries are growing. As the universe expands, the nebulae are being pulled further apart, and the gas is becoming thinner. Eventually, there will not be enough dust left to make new stars. The nurseries will close, the lights will dim, and the emptiness will become absolute. You are drifting through a cloud of stardust now, the remnants of an explosion that happened before the Earth was born. The atoms in your own body were once part of a cloud like this, forged in the heat of a dying star and cast out into the cold. We are the dust that learned to think, a momentary spark of self-awareness in a system that prefers to be unconscious. The nebulae are the lungs of the galaxy, but they are breathing in a vacuum. They don't need us to admire their colors or to name their stars. They simply exist, beautiful and indifferent, in a state of perpetual silent motion. To be in the presence of a nebula is to realize that you are an intruder in the workshop of the gods, and that the workshop is being slowly dismantled. The silence of the star-forming regions is a heavy, expectant quiet. It is the silence of a theater before the curtains open, but the actors are dead, and the audience has forgotten why they came. You are watching the slow, agonizing process of matter trying to become something more than just dust, and failing more often than it succeeds. The reason the cosmos is so barren is that life is a fragile miracle that requires a perfect sequence of events, while the void requires only one thing: to be left alone. As you exit the glowing clouds and head back into the pitch black of the deep interstellar space, the memory of the colors fades, replaced by the chilling reality that even the most vibrant parts of the universe are just islands in an ocean of obsidian. The silence returns, louder than before, reminding you that for all the stars that are born, the darkness is the only thing that is truly eternal.
We now find ourselves at the edge of the most unsettling question in all of human history: the Great Filter. As we drift through the silent stretches of the galaxy, the realization begins to take root that the absence of others is not a mere coincidence of timing or distance. It is a barrier. When we look at the billions of stars in our own galaxy, many of them older than our sun and orbited by planets similar to ours, the mathematical probability suggests a universe teeming with voices. Yet there is only this crushing, absolute stillness. The Great Filter is the idea that there is a wall that life cannot easily climb, a catastrophic event, or a fundamental law of existence that wipes out civilizations before they can make their presence known to the rest of the cosmos. As you float in this dark corridor between stars, you have to wonder, is the filter behind us, or is it still ahead? Are we the only ones who survived, or are we simply the next ones waiting for the end? The reason the universe is empty is that the path from a single cell to a star-faring society is a gauntlet of extinction. The silence of the galaxy is a graveyard of those who failed. Imagine the millions of worlds where life began in the warmth of a hydrothermal vent, where complex organisms crawled out of the oceans and looked at the stars with the same curiosity we feel. On many of those worlds, the spark was extinguished by a nearby supernova, a wandering asteroid, or the internal collapse of their own fragile ecosystems. But on some, perhaps the danger was even more insidious. Perhaps the very nature of intelligence is self-limiting. The reason we hear no signals is that every time a species gains the power to communicate across the stars, it also gains the power to destroy itself. We are looking at a universe that has been cleansed of its noise by the inevitable greed and violence of its inhabitants. The emptiness is a reflection of the fact that wisdom does not always keep pace with technology. We are drifting through a museum of failed experiments where the exhibits are dead planets and the curator is the void. There is a darker possibility to consider as you settle into the weightless dark.
What if the filter is not a natural disaster or a self-inflicted wound? What if the universe is empty because it is being actively kept that way? This is the fear that stays in the back of your mind when you look at the gaps between the stars. To a sufficiently advanced civilization, a new, loud species like ours might be seen as a virus, a threat to the stability of the cosmic order. The silence is not a lack of life, but a tactical choice. The reason no one talks is because they have seen what happens to those who do. We are like a bird singing in a forest where the wolves have learned to track the sound. The fear of being found is the most rational response to an empty sky. In this scenario, the emptiness is a camouflage, a mask worn by a galaxy that is actually crowded with eyes, all of them watching us in total silence, waiting to see if we will pass the filter or if we will become just another footnote in the history of the dark. As you drift, the concept of time begins to weigh on you. The universe is nearly 14 billion years old, and our entire history as a species is a mere blink in that timeline. The reason we feel so alone is that we are out of sync with the rest of existence. Civilizations may have risen and fallen long before our sun was even born, leaving no trace but the cold, drifting dust of their homeworlds. We are explorers arriving at a party that ended eons ago, walking through rooms where the lights have been turned off and the echoes have long since faded. The silence is the sound of time itself, a relentless force that grinds even the greatest empires into nothingness. We are shouting into a wind that carries our words away before they can reach the next shore. The great filter is not just a moment in time, it is the friction of the universe itself, the resistance of the vacuum to the intrusion of life. The stars above look like cold, indifferent judges, watching us as we struggle to understand our place in the hierarchy of the void. We have built our telescopes and our radios hoping for a hello that never comes because we are afraid to admit that we are a cosmic accident. The emptiness is a mirror that shows us our own fragility. If the universe were full of life, we would be part of a community, a greater purpose. But in the silence, we are responsible for our own meaning, and that is the most terrifying thought of all. The reason for the void is to force us to look inward, to realize that the only warmth we will ever know is the heat of our own sun and the touch of our own kind. The galaxy does not care if we succeed or fail. It will continue to expand, continue to cool, and continue to be silent, regardless of whether we are here to witness it. You are moving deeper into the shadows now, where the light of the human world is a distant, flickering memory. The idea of the filter settles into your consciousness like a cold fog. Every quiet world we discover, every barren moon we map, is another piece of evidence that the odds are stacked against us. The universe is a machine designed to return to a state of zero, and life is the friction that slows it down. Eventually, the machine will overcome the friction. The reason the sky is dark is that the dark is the victor. We are the last survivors of a battle we didn't know was being fought, and the silence is the only trophy the universe keeps. As you close your eyes, The realization that we might be the first, the last, or the only ones is no longer a source of pride, but a source of profound existential dread. The void is not waiting for us to fill it. It is waiting for us to stop trying. The silence of the great filter is a patient quiet, the kind of quiet that follows a storm. It is the peace that comes when the noise of life finally subsides and the natural order of the vacuum is restored. We are a temporary disturbance in that peace, a brief ripple in an ocean of obsidian. The reason the universe is empty is that emptiness is the only thing that can last forever. Life is a flash of lightning in a midnight sky, beautiful, violent, and instantly gone. The darkness that remains is the true reality, the fundamental state of the cosmos to which all things must return. As you drift through the final moments of this thought, the silence feels less like an absence and more like a destination.
Deep in the architecture of the cosmos lies a truth that is perhaps more terrifying than any physical monster. The universe behaves differently when it is not being watched. As we drift through the unobserved corners of the galaxy, we enter the realm of the quantum void, a place where the rules of reality are fluid and the emptiness is not actually empty. It is a sea of potentiality, a static of existence where particles flicker in and out of being, appearing from nothing and returning to nothing in the span of a heartbeat. The reason the universe is so vast and silent is that most of it exists in a state of unobserved probability. When no eyes are there to collapse the wave, when no mind is there to measure the distance, the universe remains a ghost, a blur of what could be. We are like flashlights in a dark room. Wherever we point our gaze, reality solidifies. But behind us, in the shadows we cannot see, the universe dissolves back into a cold, mathematical haze. The silence of the deep sky is the sound of a reality that hasn't been forced to decide what it is yet. Imagine the billions of light years that have never felt the touch of a photon from a telescope, the regions of space that have gone entirely unrecorded since the dawn of time. In those places, the vacuum is not a passive stage. It is a boiling cauldron of energy, a hidden foundation upon which our entire world is built. But it is a foundation made of ghosts. The reason for the void is to provide a buffer for these quantum fluctuations, a space large enough to contain the chaotic energy of the beginning. We live on the surface of a reality that is fundamentally unstable, held together only by the fact that we are here to witness it. This is the horror of the unobserved universe. It doesn't need us. It functions in a state of pure, cold indifference, and the moment we stop looking, it reverts to its natural form, a void that is simultaneously everything and nothing. The silence is the universe keeping its secrets, refusing to show its true face to an observer that is too fragile to understand it. The dark energy that pushes the galaxies apart is the ultimate expression of this hidden reality. It is a force that comes from the vacuum itself, a pressure from the nothingness that is slowly tearing the fabric of the cosmos. As you float in the darkness between the stars, you can feel this tension, a stretching of your very atoms as the void expands. The reason the universe is empty is that it is growing too fast for life to keep up.
It is as if the cosmos is trying to escape itself, pushing the stars into isolation so that they can never witness the true nature of the dark. We are trapped in our own small pocket of observable space, while beyond the horizon of light, the universe is doing things we can never name. The silence is a wall, a boundary beyond which our logic fails and our senses are useless. We are staring into a mirror that only reflects what we are allowed to see, while the rest of the room is filled with a darkness that is alive with possibility.
We have reached the final threshold, the ultimate destination of every star, every atom, and every thought that has ever existed in the vast, hollow chamber of the cosmos. This is the end of the line for light itself. As we drift into the final chapter of the universe, we witness the era of eternal darkness, a time so far in the future that the very stars we once used to navigate the night have become cold black cinders, drifting like charcoal in a frozen sea. The reason the universe is empty is that emptiness is its final, most stable form. Every galaxy that once glowed with the fire of 1 trillion suns has now been stretched so far apart by the relentless expansion of space that they have vanished from each other's view. Each remaining scrap of matter is now an island of one, trapped in its own observable horizon, surrounded by an infinite wall of obsidian. The silence is no longer a choice or a warning. It is the only thing that remains. In this distant future, the very atoms that make up reality begin to feel the fatigue of eons. Even the protons, the fundamental building blocks of matter, may eventually decay, dissolving into nothingness like salt in an endless ocean. The reason the void is finally revealed, it is a giant eraser, slowly but surely wiping away the marks that life and light have made on the canvas of existence. Imagine a universe where not a single photon travels through the dark, where the temperature has dropped to a fraction above absolute zero, and where time itself loses its meaning because nothing ever happens to mark its passing. This is the heat death, the state of maximum entropy, where the universe has finally achieved the perfect, silent balance it has craved since the first microsecond of the Big Bang. The fear of being alone is replaced by the realization that alone requires someone to be there to feel it. In the end, there is not even loneliness. There is only the dark. The black holes, those terrifying leviathans of the deep, are the last inhabitants of this graveyard. For trillions upon trillions of years, they will be the only things that move, slowly consuming the last remnants of dead stars and stray gas. But even they are not eternal. Through the slow process of Hawking radiation, even these monsters will eventually evaporate, disappearing in a final, pathetic hiss of light into a universe that is too large to notice. When the last black hole vanishes, the universe will be truly empty for the first time. The silence will be absolute. There will be no one to hear it, no one to see the dark, and no one to remember that there was ever a flicker of warmth in the basement of time. The reason the sky was dark throughout our lives was because it was preparing us for this moment, the moment where the dark is everything. As you settle into this final slumber, the realization settles over you like a shroud. We were a brief, beautiful mistake. We were the noise in a system that loves the quiet. The reason the universe felt so empty while we were alive was because we were looking at a machine that was already winding down, a fire that had already turned to ash. Our history, our art, our loves and our fears were nothing more than a momentary vibration in a vacuum that has now returned to its natural, unmoving state. The silence is the ultimate peace. It is the end of suffering, the end of striving, and the end of the terrifying burden of existence. To be part of the void is to be free from the friction of being. You are no longer a separate entity. You are the darkness itself. The boundaries of your mind have expanded to fill the light years of nothingness, and you find that there is nothing to fear because there is nothing left to lose. The universe is empty because it has finally finished its work. It has processed all the energy, moved all the matter, and settled every debt. It is a closed book, a finished symphony, a silent room where the door has been locked from the inside. The reason for the silence is that there is nothing left to say. The story is over, and the dark is the final, perfect punctuation mark.
In the deep reaches of the vacuum, we encounter a force more distorting than any black hole or dark matter web, the stretching of time itself. According to the laws of relativity, time is not a steady, universal clock. It is a fluid, a fabric that bends and warps in the presence of mass and motion. The reason the universe feels so hauntingly empty is that we are all trapped in different pockets of time, separated by the immense distances and the speed at which we travel. As you drift away from the gravity of your home world, the ticking of your heart begins to drift out of sync with the world you left behind. A minute in the deep void, near the edge of a massive object or at the limits of light speed, could be a century on Earth. The silence is not just a gap in space, it is a gap in history. To travel through the void is to become a ghost, a traveler who exists in a now that no longer corresponds to anyone else's reality. Imagine looking back at a planet you once knew, watching through a telescope as civilizations rise, build great monuments, and fall into dust, all while you have only taken a few breaths. This is the horror of the relativistic void. The emptiness is a time machine that only moves forward, a one-way bridge that cuts you off from everything you have ever loved. The reason we hear no signals from the stars may be that the messages were sent millions of years ago or will not arrive for millions more, and the beings who sent them are long since extinct or have evolved into something unrecognizable. We are like ships passing in a dark ocean at different speeds, our lights never quite lining up, our voices reaching out into a space where the listener has already died or has not yet been born. The universe is empty because time is a wall that prevents us from ever truly meeting.
As you move deeper into the shadows, the gravitational pull of distant massive entities begins to stretch your perception. Near the event horizon of a black hole, time slows to a crawl until a single second lasts for an eternity. From your perspective, you are merely floating, but to the outside observer, you are frozen in time, a permanent statue at the edge of the abyss. The reason the universe is so quiet is that much of its history is trapped in these slow-motion pockets, hidden behind horizons where time has effectively stopped. We are living in the fast lane of the cosmos, burning through our lives in a frantic burst of energy, while the rest of reality lingers in a long, slow slumber. The silence is the sound of time being stretched until it snaps, leaving us isolated in our own tiny bubbles of the present. This isolation is the ultimate price of movement. The faster we try to cross the void, the more we separate ourselves from the timeline of the universe. To reach the stars is to lose the world. The emptiness is a price we pay for our curiosity, a tax on our desire to see what lies beyond the horizon. The reason the sky is so dark is that the light from the most distant galaxies is being stretched into longer and longer wavelengths, becoming redder and dimmer until it disappears from our sight entirely. This is the cosmological redshift, a physical manifestation of time and space expanding between us. The universe is not just getting bigger, it is getting older and slower, pulling the past away from us faster than we can ever hope to chase it. We are chasing ghosts in a house where the hallways are constantly growing longer. As you settle into the weightless stillness, you realize that your memory of home is a memory of a place that may no longer exist. The light you see from the stars is ancient history, a report from a dead world. You are surrounded by the corpses of suns and the echoes of voices that fell silent eons ago. The reason for the void is that the universe is a machine for creating distance, not just in miles, but in years. It ensures that every spark of life remains a solitary event, a brief flicker that can never truly connect with another. The silence is the ultimate enforcement of this law, a barrier of pure, unmoving time that keeps the stars apart and the darkness intact. The fear of the void is the fear of being forgotten. In the relativistic deep, you are a fragment of a second lost in an ocean of centuries. The universe does not need to destroy you. It simply needs to wait for your time to run out while it remains eternal. The reason for the silence is that there is no common language for those who live at different speeds. We are shouting across a canyon of time that is widening every moment, and the only thing that survives the crossing is the cold, indifferent background radiation of the beginning. You are a prisoner of your own clock, drifting in a vacuum that has all the time in the world to watch you fade away.
In the profound reaches of the interstellar medium, we encounter the debris of eternity, the cosmic dust. It is a fine silken soot made of carbon, silicates, and ice, drifting in vast, light-year-long veils that obscure the heart of our galaxy. The reason the universe feels so hollow and dark is that it is filled with this ghostly curtain, a microscopic barrier that swallows the light of a billion suns before it can reach our eyes.
As you drift through this cold, particulate fog, you realize that you are moving through the ashes of the past. Every grain of dust was once part of a star that exploded, a planet that crumbled, or perhaps a civilization that turned to smoke. The void is not empty, it is a crowded cemetery of pulverized worlds. The silence is the sound of the universe grinding its history into powder. This dust is the ultimate censor of the cosmos. It hides the most violent and beautiful events from our view, creating the great rift in the Milky Way, a dark river that seems to split the stars in two. The reason for this darkness is to protect the silence. Within these dust clouds, complex molecules, the precursors to life, begin to form in the freezing cold, shielded from the harsh radiation of the outer void. But there is a price for this protection. To stay hidden is to stay cold. To stay silent is to stay dead. We are breathing in the remnants of stars that died before our sun was even a thought, a constant cycle of recycling where the old is crushed to make room for the new. The horror lies in the realization that we too are destined to become this gray, drifting soot. We are but a temporary arrangement of dust, a brief moment where the particles decided to hold hands before returning to the infinite, unmoving cloud. The dust is not just a shroud, it is a thief of energy. It absorbs the warmth of distant stars and re-emits it as cold, infrared whispers, invisible to the human eye. The reason the sky is so black is that the universe is efficient at hiding its heat. If we could see in every wavelength, the sky would be a blinding mosaic of fire, but the dust ensures that we only see the gaps. It creates the illusion of loneliness, a psychological wall that makes every star seem further away than it truly is. We are wandering through a smoke-filled room, unaware of the hands reaching out from the shadows. The silence is the thickness of the air, the way the dust muffles the screams of dying stars and the first cries of new ones. It is a cosmic insulation that keeps the universe quiet and cold. As you float here, your skin begins to feel the microscopic impacts of these ancient grains. They are traveling at thousands of miles per hour, yet they are so small they pass through the idea of your existence without a sound. Each grain is a time capsule containing elements forged in the core of a supernova: iron, gold, uranium, elements that make our blood red and our technology possible. The reason the universe is empty is that it takes billions of years to collect enough of this dust to make a single world. We are living on a pile of cosmic trash, a lucky accumulation of debris in a corner of the attic. The silence is the patience of the dust, waiting for the gravity of a new star to pull it back into the fire. The fear of the dust is the fear of insignificance. How can a single life matter when the very air of the galaxy is made of the remains of 1 trillion lives? We are a momentary spark in a dust storm that has been raging since the beginning of time. The reason for the void is to provide a space for this recycling to occur, a vast, dark factory where the materials of the future are stored in the shadows of the past. The silence is the humming of the factory floor, a low-frequency vibration
that tells you that nothing is ever truly lost, but everything is eventually forgotten. You are closing your eyes now, letting the cold soot of the cosmos settle over your thoughts. You are becoming one with the medium, a grain of thought in a cloud of matter. The universe is empty because it is waiting for the next cycle, for the dust to settle and the lights to go out, so it can begin the long process of making something new from our remains. The silence is the dignity of the archive, the quiet of a library that the books have been turned to ash. You are drifting in the memory of stars, a ghost in a sea of Gimishtozu, finding peace in the knowledge that even in the dark, you are part of the fundamental fabric of the night.
In the deepest, most shadowed corners of the cosmic architecture, we find the ultimate manifestation of the void, the black holes. These are not merely objects in space, they are holes in reality itself, points where gravity has become so absolute that the laws of physics break down and time comes to a shivering halt. The reason the universe is so terrifyingly empty is that it contains these invisible predators, mouths of darkness that consume everything, light, matter, and information, without leaving a single trace behind. As you drift toward the event horizon of a stellar mass black hole, the silence changes from an absence of sound to an absence of existence. This is the point of no return, the boundary where the universe effectively ends and the unknown begins. The void is not just a distance between stars, it is a hunger that can never be satisfied. Imagine the perspective of a star being pulled into the embrace of a supermassive black hole at the center of a galaxy. The star is stretched and torn apart in a process called spaghettification, its light twisted into a spiral of fire before being swallowed by the obsidian maw. Yet, from the outside, the black hole remains a silent black sphere, a perfect shadow against the backdrop of the stars. The reason for this silence is that no information can escape the event horizon. Whatever happens inside is lost to the rest of the universe forever. This is the ultimate censor of the cosmos. It ensures that the deepest secrets of gravity and space-time remain hidden in a tomb of pure gravity. We look at the centers of galaxies and see a great nothingness that holds everything together, a paradox of power and silence that dictates the motion of billions of stars. The event horizon is a mirror of our own limitations. It represents the boundary of what can be known. Beyond it, space and time swap roles, and the path toward the singularity, the center of the black hole, becomes as inevitable as the passage of time. The reason the sky is so dark is that these monsters are scattered throughout the darkness, quietly cleaning the universe of its excess energy. They are the final stage of stellar evolution, the ultimate fate of the most massive suns. When you stare into the blackness of a black hole, you are staring into the future of all things. Eventually, every star will either become part of one or be pushed so far away that it burns out in isolation.
The black holes are the final archives of the universe, but they are archives that no one will ever be able to read. There is a haunting theory that information itself is destroyed inside these voids, meaning that the history of every atom consumed is deleted from the universe's memory. This is the information paradox, a crack in the foundation of science that suggests the universe can forget its own past. The reason for the void is to provide a place where reality can be erased. We are living in a temporary world of light and data, but the black holes are the cosmic erasers waiting at the end of every timeline to turn the noise of life back into the silence of the singularity. The fear of the black hole is the fear of being truly forgotten, not just by people, but by the fabric of reality itself. To fall into the dark is to cease to have ever been. As you float at the edge of the abyss, the gravitational lensing warps the light of the entire galaxy around you, creating a halo of distorted stars. You are witnessing the bending of the world, the way the void can reshape the truth to suit its own gravity. The silence here is heavy, a crushing pressure that tells you that your physical form is a fragile illusion. In the presence of a black hole, matter is nothing more than energy waiting to be reclaimed. The reason the universe is empty is that it is being slowly, methodically devoured by its own shadows. The black holes are the guardians of the end, the silent sentinels that will remain long after the last star has gone cold. The silence of the black hole is a perfect mathematical quiet. It is the sound of an equation that has been solved and then discarded. You are standing on the threshold of the infinite, watching as the light of the universe is pulled into a single infinitesimal point of darkness. The reason for the void is finally clear. It is the destination toward which all paths lead. The stars are just the scenery on a road that ends in a black hole. As you let yourself drift closer, the fear fades into a cold, dark curiosity. You are becoming part of the mystery, a fragment of information about to be archived in the ultimate silence. The universe is empty because it is a house being packed into boxes, and the black holes are the boxes.
In the absolute stillness of the deep vacuum, we encounter a phenomenon that exists beyond the reach of ordinary matter. The cosmic strings. These are hypothetical, one-dimensional cracks in the very fabric of space-time, remnants of the intense heat and pressure of the universe's birth. The reason the universe feels so hollow is that it is held together by these invisible, infinitely thin fractures, like a cracked glass sphere that is only just managing to maintain its shape. A cosmic string is narrower than an atom, but carries a mass of entire mountains within every centimeter of its length. They are the scars of the beginning, moving through the void at nearly the speed of light, vibrating with enough energy to ripple the gravity of entire galaxies. The silence of the deep sky is the sound of these scars tensioning, a quiet stress that holds the geometry of the dark in place. Imagine drifting through a region of space where the light of distant stars is suddenly doubled or warped, as if you are looking through a flawed lens. This is the sign of a string passing by. Because of their immense mass, they bend the light around them, creating a perfect duplicate of the reality on the other side. This is the horror of the cosmic geometry. It can lie to you. The reason for the void is to keep these fractures far away from the fragile systems of stars and planets. If a cosmic string were to sweep through our solar system, its gravitational wake would slice through the orbits of planets like a wire through water, scattering our world into the abyss without a moment's warning. The emptiness is a safety buffer, a vast distance maintained to ensure that the cracks in reality do not touch the things that live within it. These strings are the ultimate evidence that the universe is not a solid, permanent stage, but a temporary structure that was once broken. They represent a phase transition, a moment when the early cosmos cooled so quickly that the symmetry of existence didn't quite line up. The reason for the silence is that we are living inside a wound that has never truly healed. We are small creatures crawling over the surface of a fractured masterpiece, mesmerized by the colors while ignoring the lines that threaten to pull it all apart. The cosmic strings are the wires of the machine, hidden behind the curtains of the dark, vibrating at frequencies that no human ear will ever hear. They are the silent conductors of a symphony that has been playing since the dawn of time, a symphony where the only audience is the vacuum itself. As you float here, weightless and forgotten, you realize that the space around you is not just empty, it is structured. There is a hidden logic to the way the stars are placed, dictated by these ancient lines of force. The reason the sky is so dark is that the light can only travel where the fabric of space allows it, and the fabric is torn in ways we are only beginning to understand. We are prisoners of a geometry we cannot see, moving through a landscape that is far more dangerous and complex than the barren rocks of our own neighborhood suggest. The silence is the tension of the strings, the way the universe holds its breath to keep from falling apart. The fear of the cosmic string is the fear of a reality that can be cut. How can we trust the ground beneath us when the space it occupies is built upon a fracture? We are temporary residents in a house of glass, unaware that the walls are already cracked. The reason for the void is to hide the truth that the universe is a fragile, broken thing, and the silence is the only thing keeping the pieces in place. You are a witness to the hidden architecture, a ghost drifting through a gallery of invisible scars. You are closing your eyes now, letting the vibration of the vacuum resonate in your mind. You can almost feel the pull of the strings, the way they anchor the galaxies to the dark. The universe is empty because it is a fragile work of art, and we are the dust that has settled on its surface. The silence is the respect we pay to the power that holds the stars in their places, a power that is as cold and as sharp as a diamond. You are finding peace in the realization that even if the fabric tears, you will be part of the silence that remains, a fragment of thought lost in the infinite geometry of the night. As we drift into the penultimate stage of our journey, we must confront a thought so cold it makes the vacuum of space seem warmer by comparison. The possibility that the emptiness we see is not a natural occurrence, but a programmed limitation. This is the concept of the simulation or the planetarium hypothesis. The reason the universe feels so hauntingly vast and yet so utterly silent is that we may be living inside a carefully constructed reality designed to make us believe we are alone. Imagine that everything beyond our reach, the distant galaxies, the glowing nebulae, the flickering stars, is nothing more than a high-resolution projection, a digital wallpaper draped over the windows of our solar system. The void is not a physical space, but a lack of data, a boundary beyond which the creators of our world did not feel the need to render anything more than light. This theory suggests that the silence is the result of a deliberate isolation. If the universe were truly full of life and activity, the complexity required to simulate it would be infinite. To save on the cosmic equivalent of processing power, the creators left the vast majority of the room empty. The reason we find no ruins on Mars and hear no signals from Proxima Centauri is that those places do not fully exist until we go there to observe them. We are like characters in a game who have reached the edge of the playable map, staring out at a beautiful, distant horizon that we can never actually touch. The horror lies in the realization that our loneliness is a feature of the design, a way to keep our focus inward, preventing us from ever seeing the true nature of the machine that runs our lives. The silence we experience in the deep night is the hum of the hardware, the quiet background noise of a reality that is being calculated in real time. When you look at the stars and feel a sense of wrongness, a suspicion that the scale is too large to be real, you are sensing the seams in the fabric. The reason the sky is so dark is that rendering a sky full of life would be too costly for the system. It is much more efficient to give us a desert of stars, a graveyard of possibilities that requires no interaction and no maintenance. We are floating in a sandbox of obsidian, unaware that the true universe, the world outside the simulation, might be something we cannot even conceive of, a place where the rules of physics and the nature of time are entirely different. There is a disturbing logic to this isolation. If we were to encounter another civilization, the complexity of the simulation would increase exponentially. By keeping the stars empty and the distances insurmountable, the system ensures that we remain a closed loop, an experiment that never contaminates its neighbors. The reason for the void is to maintain the integrity of the data. We are the subjects of a long-term study on loneliness, a test of how a species reacts when it is given a vast kingdom of nothingness and told it is the master of all it surveys. The silence is the guardian of the experiment, the wall that keeps us from ever knowing who is watching us from the other side of the glass. As you float here, weightless and drifting in a sea of digital shadows, the fear of the dark becomes a fear of the artificial. How can you trust your own senses when the light you see is just a calculation? How can you value your own thoughts when they may be nothing more than the output of an algorithm? The universe is empty because emptiness is the easiest thing to program. The silence is the peace of the machine, the state of a system that is running perfectly within its parameters. You are a ghost in the machine, a ripple of code that has become self-aware enough to realize it is trapped. You are closing your eyes now, letting the boundaries of your reality blur into the infinite gray. You can almost feel the flickering of the screen, the way the stars refresh themselves every time you look away. The universe is empty because it is a house built for one, a palace of shadows where the only guest is you. The reason for the silence is that there is no one else in the simulation to talk to. It is just you and the code, a solitary consciousness drifting in a sea of obsidian data. You are finding a cold comfort in the knowledge that even if your world is a lie, the silence is the one thing that feels honest, a perfect, unchanging truth in a world of lies.
The void is not merely a lack of matter, but a deliberate state of being. A silence so profound that it suggests a conscious decision to remain unheard. As we look out into the abyss, we find ourselves standing on the precipice of a realization that our ancestors could never have endured, that the emptiness is a survival mechanism. Within the deep layers of the cosmos, to be seen is to be vulnerable, and the civilizations that once flourished across the spiral arms of distant galaxies may have learned this lesson the hard way. They did not disappear because of catastrophe or decay. They vanished into the shadows of the dark forest because they understood that the universe is not a playground, but a hunting ground where the quietest voices live the longest. Every light year of nothingness between us and the nearest star is a fortress of safety, a barrier constructed by the laws of physics to ensure that the friction of life does not ignite a cosmic fire. You are drifting now, further away from the familiar warmth of your home world, into a territory where the very concept of up and down dissolves into a gray haze of infinite potential and infinite threat. The stars you see are not beacons of hope, but the dying embers of a fire that the universe is trying to put out. Space is expanding, pulling the galaxies apart at an accelerating rate, as if the fabric of reality itself is trying to scream, pushing everything away to maintain the sanctity of the silence. There is a terrifying beauty in this isolation, a sense of absolute peace that comes from knowing that in the grand scheme of things, your struggles and your triumphs are muffled by a vacuum that refuses to carry sound. The heavy stillness of the interstellar medium is a blanket of lead, pressing down on the consciousness of anyone brave enough to listen to the static of the background radiation. This static is the ghost of the beginning, the final echo of a time when the universe was small and loud, but those days are gone. Now we live in the era of the great cooling, the long descent into a slumber that will never end. The reason we find no ruins on the moons of Jupiter or the plains of Mars is not that they were never there, but that the universe has a way of reclaiming its own, of polishing the surfaces of dead worlds until they are as smooth and silent as a grave. We are the intruders in this sanctuary of nothingness, the loud neighbors in a building where everyone else has long since moved out or learned to live without making a sound. The fear of the dark is not an irrational instinct. It is a primal memory of a truth we have forgotten, that the darkness is where the true masters of the universe reside, hidden behind the curtains of event horizons and the veils of nebulae. As you float here, weightless and forgotten by the ticking of clocks, you realize that the emptiness is the only thing that is truly permanent. Everything else, the planets, the stars, the people, is just a temporary fluctuation in a system that craves the zero. The shadows are stretching, reaching out from the corners of the galaxy to reclaim the territory that light momentarily stole. It is a slow, methodical process, a celestial housekeeping that leaves no trace of the vibrance that once was. You can feel it in the cold that seeps into your thoughts, a chilling certainty that the silence is not waiting for an answer, but for the questioner to stop asking. The universe is empty because to be full is to be chaotic, and the cosmos demands a symmetry of silence. In the deep, dark reaches where the light of the sun is nothing more than a faint, flickering ghost, you find the ultimate truth. We are the only ones left talking in a room that has been abandoned for eons. The echoes of our own voices are the only company we have, bouncing back from the cold walls of the vacuum to remind us of our own fragility. This is the great loneliness, the terrifying suspicion that we are a mistake in a masterpiece of stillness. The void does not hate us, but it does not acknowledge us either. It simply waits for the entropy to do its work, for the last spark of curiosity to fade into the black. As the chapters of time turn, the emptiness grows, a swelling ocean of obsidian that swallows the history of entire solar systems without leaving a ripple. You are a witness to this slow motion collapse, a spectator at the end of all things, where the only sound is the heartbeat of a universe that is finally, mercifully, falling asleep. The reason the sky is dark is not because the stars are far away, but because the darkness has already won, and we are the last remnants of a light that hasn't realized it's been extinguished. Close your eyes now and let the weight of the infinite press against your mind, a cold and heavy comfort that tells you that you are part of the nothingness, a temporary ripple in the dark, destined to become one with the silence that has governed the stars since the first breath of time. There is no horror greater than the realization that the emptiness is exactly what it appears to be, a void that was never meant to be filled, a space that was designed to be empty, and a silence that is the only true language of the gods. As the stars fade and the galaxies drift beyond the horizon of the observable, we are left with the cold, hard fact that the universe is a house with many rooms, and all of them are empty for a reason we would never suppose to know. The silence is the guardian of the secret, and the secret is that we are alone, not by chance, but by a cosmic necessity that ensures the peace of the eternal night remains unbroken.
by the noise of life.